It goes without saying that adversity or hardship or trauma or abuse can do a number on you from a psychological standpoint. I want us to address that matter over the next few minutes. People pay attention to your behavior as much or more than your words. After all, what you do is right there in plain sight for everyone to see. You cover your face in shame, or you laugh so hard your body shakes, or you walk out of the room. It's not so hard for someone to answer the question, what did he or she do? A more difficult question is, why did that person do what he or she did? So let's tackle that matter, shall we? Here's a really simple hypothetical scenario. A woman's phone rings. She looks at the phone screen to see who's calling, and then she chooses not to answer the phone. So if we ask the question, what did the woman do when the phone rang? The obvious response is she didn't answer it. But why? Maybe she didn't have time for what she assumed would be a long conversation. Or maybe she was mad at the caller, so she chose not to talk to that person. Or maybe she didn't want the people around her listening in on her conversation. Unless we look at life from that person's point of view, we can't correctly answer questions about why they chose to behave the way they did. That statement applies in simple scenarios, like the one I just described, but it also applies in even the most complex of relationships. Here's 2 guidelines for making sense of why people do the things they do in response to trauma. A person's history helps determine her present day decisions. And the second one, we make decisions based on our perceived needs. Okay, let's go back to our very simple example. The woman whose phone rang may have chosen not to answer because she felt a need for personal time. Or she used the silent treatment because she felt a need to punish someone. Or she felt a need to soothe her own anxiety, so she avoided a potentially tense conversation. Needs press us into action. Now let's take a more serious example of how needs motivate our behavior. Suppose a person is in a toxic relationship. As a result, her self-esteem is bruised. Her trust in others is low. Her moods shift from one day to the next. That person's behavior might be marked by low energy or unexpected arguments or depression, and it might be easy for us to say what she does from one day to the next. She sits in silence, or she snaps if people talk to her, or she cries easily. But if we ask this person to dig deeply and explain why she behaves as she does, she may offer us some insightful remarks like, I feel the need to protect myself, or I feel the need to preserve my dignity. When we look beneath the hood, so to speak, of another person, it's then that we understand the need that motivates her behavior. And that not only applies to us looking at others, but looking within. Okay, so let's get real personal for a moment. When you understand the underlying connection between your behavior and your needs, you are in essence creating a healing opportunity. Have you ever thought of it like that? When you increase your self-awareness, you can challenge the assumptions that cause you to behave as you do. A woman who displays low energy and argues, or acts depressed because she wants to prevent being emotionally hurt, can then look for healthy ways to satisfy her needs. My point is this: if we want to change in response to trauma or adversity or hardship of any kind, when we examine our behaviors, we find out which needs are unmet and need to change. Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper. One of the things research unfortunately tells us is that most people aren't as self-aware as they think they are. That's not what we want to hear, is it? It's one thing to know what's going on around us and to describe it, but it's another thing to fully understand why we are acting the way we do. One of the reasons most people aren't as self-aware as we think we are is because it sometimes hurts to be truly, bluntly and truly honest with ourselves. It's a skill we have to develop. That kind of self-awareness requires a lot of digging and reflection, but it's a skill that brings big dividends in the form of personal growth. Let's take another real simple scenario. Suppose you want to learn to play the piano. You can't simply sit down at a keyboard and start playing. It takes knowledge and practice to develop that skill set. But if you put in the practice and time it takes to hone that skill, the result can be very gratifying. The same thing is true in terms of psychological development, developing self-awareness. It's important for us to ask ourselves, what skills am I missing? What does my behavior say about my underlying needs? Be brave. Ask someone who knows you well to offer their opinion about why you behave as you do. Listen intently to what they say. Maybe you'll agree with that person's assessment, and maybe you won't, but it's smart to seek honest feedback from others. Once you arm yourself with that level of self-awareness and understanding, then it's much easier to look for positive, productive way to satisfy your need to overcome whatever is going on in your life. Replace non-productive behavior with behaviors that bring out the best in your personality, and self-awareness will help get you there. Let me hear from you. What are some of your non-productive behaviors? What does your behavior say about your underlying needs? Tell us some ways you've learned to replace unwanted behaviors with healthy acts that more effectively satisfy your needs and help you get over trauma. Below this video, you'll find a link for a book I've written to help you with this very problem. This is psychologist Lee Carter. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, I would very much like that. And as always, I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.